So just what inspired you to tell your story again?
Well, I kind of wanted to put my story out there. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, whether it would be like a kind of like a biography thing or, me just telling it through the eyes of another character. But then I was introduced to Kendra and, her project with the Resilient Woman and to, tell your story of resilience of how you achieved or overcame something in your life. And I was like, wow, maybe this is something God wants me to do. And I prayed about it and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do this.
It's the Working Mom.
Of the Working Mom podcast. I am here today in honor to have another one of my co-authors for our book, The Fragrance of a Resilient Woman, Miss Jennifer Johnson. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and telling your story. I've been trying to get everybody on individually just to kind of shed light on a one-on-one basis because everybody's story is so super powerful. And I had the pleasure of reading and going through your chapter only to discover that our stories were super similar, which was amazing to me because I really didn't have a chance with, all of the editings, everything that we were doing to really go through each person's chapter and each person's story. So now with the podcast, it's kind of slowed me down a little bit to allow me to, read everybody's chapter prior to obviously us speaking about it. Mm-hmm. And I had no clue that another co-author had a very similar story. And I feel like that's really the reason for this, because you just never know who has a similar story, right. The path that they took, what their experiences are and so forth. So I was definitely excited to read your chapter and kind of just go over your experience and how everything ended on your side as far as your story of resilience. And your chapter is called Forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was amazing. Like, I think that's an awesome title, especially once I read through your chapter. That was definitely the perfect title for your chapter.
Yeah.
So just tell me a little bit about yourself and just tell me a little bit about your chapter and why you named your chapter Forgiveness.
All right. Well, I'm Jennifer Johnson, originally from New York, currently live in Suffolk, Virginia. I'm married with 4 children. Their ages are 24, 18, 15, and 8. I am the CEO and founder of Through the Journey, which we have a mission to inspire women to live their best life and to walk in their truth. And I am a self-published author. My title is called The Scent of Forgiveness. And I named it that because forgiveness played a big part of my life from healing from a lot of the things that I went through in my life. And when you think about forgiveness, a lot of people say, it's about forgiving another person, but a lot of it is forgiving yourself for some of the things that you've done in your life that you never knew affected you in a certain way that was hindering you from growing to that next level in life.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to expound on that and share those experiences for other women to see, once you forgive yourself and you do that healing, it just opens up a whole new world for you,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I didn't realize that our kids were so close in age also. I mean, it's just like a parallel story almost.
I know.
Yeah, my kids are 23, 18, 13, and 10. So wow. That's extremely close. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that. So that's definitely something new that I even learned after reading your story, that's another very similar thing that we have in common. So what inspired you to write your story of resilience? Or what inspired you to agree basically to do the book? And I know you've already published, books previously, so you're not, a newbie to being an author, but just everything that comes on you with putting your story out there. And I know just the mental process. So just what inspired you to tell your story again?
Well, I kind of wanted to put my story out there. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, whether it would be like a kind of like a biography thing or, me just telling it through the eyes of another character. But then I was introduced to Kendra and, her project with the Resilient Woman, and to, tell your story of resilience, of how you achieved or overcame something in your life. And I was like, wow, maybe this is something God wants me to do. And I prayed about it and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do this. And I signed to be a part of it. And writing my story, of course, when you're writing, you're going through those emotions like, wow, I went through this and, I overcame. And then, some things I had to sit down with my kids and my husband and be like, these are the things that I'm going to explain and talk about, and they were all very supportive. Like, that's your story, so, do what you have to do and share your experience because it could help somebody else. So I was very thankful to have their support and understanding when it came to this.
And I think my process was exactly the same. We had tons of family meetings, like, let's sit together. This is what I plan on doing. I think mentally, I personally pushed it aside even a little bit to say, like, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? And now it was crunch time where it's like, I have to make a decision if I'm going to do this or not. And like you said, I just feel like so many things go through your mind in the process, like what to say, because we have a chapter, and we have a full story to tell, and then you have to crunch it into the chapter, but you're always just thinking about just all your experiences and mentally how you have to move forward after you tell your story. So it's like, what pieces of my story do I want to tell? What pieces of my story and experiences don't I really want to tell? And what's the most vital things to put into a chapter if I needed to get some information out for somebody, to share my story, if I'm going to move forward to do this? Like, I feel like that's mentally the entire space. And my kids were exactly the same answer. Just ask the kids. Like, right. I just always say, like, we as adults, I feel like second guess ourselves so much. And I just love, like, the freedom of being a child, and they just literally tell it exactly how it is. Like, they don't cut any cards in their So piggybacking on that, I always want to know, and I think I told this story in the last podcast, that I think we had one co-author that did decide after fully doing the chapter that she didn't want to move forward. And I understand that experience because, you have so much going on with your family. And I feel like we don't know if she was possibly still in the midst of, some of the things she wants to tell, but maybe, she was not over the hump of everything that was going on in her story of resilience, and pretty much maybe just felt like she wasn't ready, or maybe the timing wasn't right, or whatever her thought process was. And I just always am curious from each co-author, like, did you guys experience any thoughts of, other people's opinions, or even not even thoughts, but actually had any backlash from family or friends or anything, even during the process or once the book came out?
No, I didn't. And I just, a real big important piece of being able to tell your story is to make sure you have healed from it. Because when you're writing, those emotions come back, like me, being a teen mom and dealing with my depression and, the infidelity in my marriage and going through that situation, like all those things came back up. But I was like, you know what? I prayed about it and I was like, you know what? God gave me the strength to move on from this and heal and forgive. And I'm doing this for a purpose. So that was the mind frame I had to stay in when I was writing, and not stay stuck in that.
And I remember, like, my thought process, it just brought back so many different emotions, because I read your story and I believe you became a teen mom at the age of 15. And I remember actually being angry towards other teen moms that were older than me. And even though they were teen moms, because I felt like, me finding out I was pregnant at 13, I felt like somebody that's 15 or 16, like this should be almost close to a walk in the park for you because you're almost close to being an adult, where my thought process was just like the depression started to set in with me because I had so long before I was able even to legally get an apartment. Like I just felt like no matter what I did, I wasn't old enough. Like my age just played a huge factor. So that's something that would go through my mind then. I would start to build anger towards like a 16-year-old teen mom, where now that I understand, it was definitely tons of similarities in the struggles and what we all had to deal with. But I think that when you're going through it, it's just so many things that you try to fault yourself with. And that was just one thing that was huge for me. I used to always, like, if someone was 16 and they were, because I'm a 16-year-old mom, I would just be like, do you know I've already been doing this for like 3 years already? Like, you're just new to it. So it's just like, now I know that it's all the same similar struggles. I mean, 13, 15, 16 is still, a child basically bringing another life into this world, navigating through that and so forth. But I definitely agree that it was just so many different aspects and different things, especially with minimal support, minimal help, and it was just during that time where I feel like people felt like your life was over. So I don't even really fault the people in my life that, felt like I was ruining my life and I was going to ruin my life, because I feel like that's kind of like that old school way of thinking that they really believe that. It's not that they were really trying to, bring negativity to you or hurt, bring that trauma to your life. It's just really, they thought you have ruined your life.
And I had to learn that, like, that was part of my forgiveness, being able to forgive as well, because it's like you grow up and you hear all this negativity and it's like, well, how do you expect me to be my best self if you throwing all this negativity,
And that's the same way I felt as well. Like, I just felt like it can't be true that I'm just going to be this much of a nobody the way you're telling me. Like, especially when you know your own personality and you know how you are even as a kid. Like, it's just amazing, and it makes you even raise your kids a lot differently, to think like, go back into their mindset, even, when they are in middle school and elementary school, and you think that they don't know and they're not smart enough to navigate things when they really are, especially when, your back is up against the wall and you have no other choice. Like, it's basically, you have another human in front of you. You have no other choice but to, fight or flight at this point. You got to do what you have to do. And I agree that I realized that, everybody has a similar story, and you have to literally navigate through all of that. And they really don't know. Like, they really have not, family members and friends are really just not trying to be out to hurt you. Like, they really thought that, and probably was even scared for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of those thoughts, like, they were probably terrified that they thought, their baby girl was going to be, the next president of the United States, and now you have ruined it.
Right. Yeah.
So I just love to hear the stories where, we definitely didn't become that statistic and did everything we can. And then once we got to that point, to be able to give back. And I feel like that's what this book is all about.
Yes.
Inspiring and giving back to the next generation. And like I said in the last podcast with our other co-author, it's not even about the next generation. It's really also about, it's other people our age or older that may be still dealing with these situations, and still, be in a space where they haven't been able to forgive themselves or to navigate through being a teen mom and still kind of struggling with that. And I feel like I experience that all the time in my industry, because I get calls all the time with teen moms that, are adults now, but just feel like they're still trying to get over the hump and still trying to get to a place where they can get a stable life for their kids and family, and just get into a mental space of happiness. And they're still fighting through something from, 15, 20 years ago. So these stories of resilience, I think, are just amazing. So I do want you to talk about kind of like the mindset that it took to forgive, because I read through your chapter, and one thing, unlike my story, is you have a few different layers to, you know, your story of resilience. So on top of being a teen mom, you've dealt with some things with fidelity within your relationship and things like that. So you had to mentally, like, the mindset to be in. Do you take each layer of forgiveness and kind of go through it? Do you navigate it all as a whole? Like, I just want you to kind of, you know, replay that mindset for us just a little bit on how do you overcome and forgive, and what's the strength and mindset that it takes to do that?
Okay, so before I could get into that, let me just explain that you know, the infidelity was on my part and on my husband's part, and there was a child born from the infidelity. And then going through that, it was like, okay, you know, do I stay? Do I go? So, you know, that was a battle in itself. Ultimately, I did decide to stay, but I knew there was some work that I would have to do for myself, and my husband would have to be committed to do that work as well. For me, it took counseling. I got to the point and I was like, you know what, I can't do this by myself, you know? And I started going to therapy. I started to journal more. And really, it wasn't until my therapist heard my story and the things that I was going through. And she said, you know, you talk about forgiveness, but have you forgiven yourself, you know, for the things that you've done and the mistakes that you made? Because you seem to be so hard on yourself about things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it and I was like, whoa, what do I have to forgive myself for, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really sit in that and think. And she was like, you know, think about what areas, what situations you've been through that you need to forgive yourself for. So I took the time to write those experiences and, you know, the mistakes that I made. And, you know, just I am is a big affirmation. So it's like, you know, I am this powerful person, you know, I'm not my mistakes, you know, just writing those affirmations, a lot of prayer, reading the Bible, you know, and a lot of communication with my husband, you know, helped that process as well. So it was a lot of things that played a role in that forgiveness part, you know.
Wow. That definitely takes a lot of strength. And I'm just always curious as well, during the process, is it something that you internalized, or did you have to go back and repair other outside relationships? Because sometimes hurt people.
Right.
So that's another layer that came to mind after reading your chapter. Is it something where you didn't kind of go on this storm of hurting people through your mindset of forgiveness and while you were going through everything, or did you kind of internalize everything?
I kind of internalized everything. And when you say hurt people, that was me and my husband hurting each other. So we had to be honest about that, you know, and we had to go to therapy together, you know, to figure out what was that bump, you know, and what did we need to do if we were going to continue in this, you know, be in a committed marriage, you know, and not, you know, walk away from each other or not let this situation happen again, you know. So
yeah, that's definitely awesome. I enjoyed your chapter so much. Like, I just want to definitely thank you for sharing your story. Because it's not easy. I know the process myself.
No, it's not.
It was not easy to go through. And like I say before, it's not necessarily just putting it out there. It's the intimate parts of it, meaning when your mindset thinks like, I just put this book out to the world, and what if now my neighbors get a copy, or my coworkers or something,
right.
You know, I mean, and you might have coworkers that you don't mind getting a copy, and then other coworkers that you probably don't want to get a copy. And now, you know, and I've even gone through just like people saying that they, you know, want to get the book to support. And then you have the people that literally have reached out and said, well, I just want to get it to be nosy. I just want to know, you know, more about.
Right.
So it's like, it's like, how do you react when somebody says that? Like, you just put like some very detailed information out about yourself, and then, you get that kind of feedback. So I've gotten both on my side, and, it's all good. The support is the support. I know some people are curious, especially similar to, like you said, when you do internalize everything, because I know I'm a super private person as well. So everything that I put out, like everybody, the main feedback is like, we didn't know that about you. Even people that were close to me, like friends, I mean, really close friends, like family friends, that were like, we didn't know anything like that about you. We didn't know you were going through those things and things of that nature. So just hearing, our side of what was going on in our stories, and just kind of hearing different point of views from different women from all across the country is what I really loved about this book, because it's not just, the teen mom story. It's so many different stories from women from all walks of life. A lot of people ask us all the time, like, did we know each other or anything? And we didn't. We all just, when Kendra, the visionary of the book, came and kind of put it out there, who has a story to tell, I think that we all have similar stories, that we saw that, and then something inside of us was just like, well, I kind of do have a story to tell. I don't know if I should tell it or not, but I kind of have been wanting to for years, and then just kind of taking that leap of faith and, putting it out there, and hopefully it can touch someone else. I've gotten tons of people call me in tears, tons of people texting me like, oh, I didn't know, I'm so sorry. But like you said, when you have gotten past it, and that's not the place that you live in, and you don't dwell in that space, then I've just been like, yeah, it's okay. You don't have to feel sorry. It's okay.
Right. And like, what's so good about this book is like, it's not just your story, it's other people's story. And like I say, my story may not be your story, but there's something you can gain from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my final question to you is just like, what words of encouragement or words of advice would you have for not only just someone in your situation that's struggling to get through it, but maybe someone that is in a similar situation on different levels of what your story is, and kind of how do they forgive? Like, what advice would you give to kind of start that healing process?
It's in the African American community, there's like a stigma with, going to counseling, seeing a psychiatrist or whatever. So that would be my first thing. Like, don't even think that. Go get the help that you need. And don't be afraid to open up to that person and let them know what's really going on, because they're there to help you. Journaling, I found, was a big piece in my healing and my forgiveness, because I was able, like I said, I internalize everything. I may not share it with other people, but I'm going to share it in that journal. I have to get it out. You have to get it out somehow and not carry it around all the time. And then when you're writing, think about those mistakes that you made. Don't harp on them, but just think about it, write it down, and say, I forgive myself for it. I forgive myself for it. And make that a habit. And then you'll really believe, like, I forgive myself, and I'm healing myself, and I'm going to move forward from this, and I'm going to grow. And this was a lesson in my life that I learned from, and it doesn't define me.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. I've moved past this. I am in another space. Like, I absolutely love that. A professional had to teach you that, because I absolutely love that. I would not have thought about that strategy. That's an amazing strategy. I love that as a starting place. Like,
those affirmations are powerful.
They are so powerful.
Yes.
When I mentor, I start my week 1 of training with teaching people how to do affirmations. Like, I did not realize how powerful they were.
Right.
But I literally start out my training with, learn how to do affirmations, I give out an app like the first session on daily affirmations, and just have it in your phone. Your phone is always in your hand. Make sure those alerts are coming through to remind yourself, like, affirmations are amazing. I feel like I did not even learn about affirmations until maybe like
you've been through some stuff, right?
Yeah, like 3 years ago. Where was these affirmations at?
Right.
Why was no one telling me that, I could literally confirm that I was on the right path? Like it really is that confirmation on a regular basis. Like the app that I have on my phone, I feel like it does affirmations like 15 times a day. And I need every time it dings, I feel like my mind is in a space where I needed to read that. I needed to see that. It keeps me going. So I'm a strong believer in just affirming everything about your next move and kind of making sure that you have those daily affirmations and as much as you can. So that is awesome. I feel like moving forward, I'm definitely using that strategy. Anything that comes up, I'm writing it down, I'm journaling. That's something else that I would love to do as well. I was not a journaler and I still don't journal. I just kind of started to write my story in this process. But I would love to actually start documenting things, even in my life today, just starting with, keeping journals, keeping some data. I would love video journals sometimes of my day to day and just thought process and things like that. So that's something that I am putting and adding to my goal list. Definitely for 2021 and moving forward. So I definitely thank you for being here. I want you to not only plug your social medias, plug your other books, any way we can reach you, anybody that wants to reach out to you through your website or anything, if you want to just plug all of your socials, and I'll put everything in the description as well. So anyone that is going through that situation or even something similar, or even any situation of forgiveness, that can reach out to you directly just to kind of reiterate the purpose of our book, to be able to give back and help someone else.
Yeah. Well, you can find me on social media through the journey. That's my business. On Instagram, it's _ through the journey. On Facebook, it's just through the journey. Also, I am Jennifer Johnson. That's me on Instagram. That's also my website. And then on Facebook, it's author Jennifer Johnson. So.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I definitely appreciate it. Everybody, please go pick up our book, The Fragrance of a Resilient Woman. It's awesome. It's so powerful. You won't be disappointed. It's so many different stories that will touch, someone in some way.
Yes.
I definitely believe that we all did an amazing job with this, and I can't wait to put out the next one, and I will be definitely reaching out to you, the expert, to put out another one, because I have the bug now. I've done it once, and now I feel like I could definitely do this again.
Yeah.
So thank you again for coming on this episode of the Working Mom podcast.
Thank you.